r/ask Reddit. People who aren't superstitious. What is something that still creeps you out you won't mess with? Looking at the mirror in the dark still gives me some creeps. I don't look in mirrors in the dark and I don't look out windows in the dark. In my defense about the windows, I've been confronted by strange men staring in on more than one occasion as a child. Sleeping in the reflection of an uncovered mirror. I think the whole point of the superstition is you just scare yourself when seeing reflection at night, but makes me uneasy. When I was in high school, my band took a trip to Chicago one year. Due to a series of events, my friend and I ended up in a hotel room by ourselves, usually 4 kids per room, and there was this huge mirror on one of the walls that looked directly at the beds. We left a post-it note asking if we could turn the mirror around or cover it because neither of us could sleep, which isn't great when you're trusted with 6-foot metal poles. I've always had this primal fear of mirrors, but my friend never had an issue with them. It was just odd. My grandma was Irish and she always told me you hear music at night, don't follow it. I grew up with stories of Bell Witch. As an adult, I don't believe any of it is real, but it was such a huge part of the culture I grew up with in Tennessee. We used to dare each other to call for her 3 times in front of a mirror in a dark room. None of my family or friends ever did it. My mom claimed she did it once and ended up with scratches down her face. To this day, I don't have the balls to do it. I'm getting an eerie feeling just typing this out. Sounds like a variation of the Bloody Mary myth. From what I understand, the Bell Witch is part of the basis of the Blair Witch, and it's a bit more about not going to her cave or the surrounding cliffs. You could summon her if you said her name in a dark mirror, like OP said, or if you came into possession of anything that had previously belonged to the Bell family. I'm not superstitious, but I am a little stitious. I absolutely refuse to turn my back to the basement stairs after turning out the light. Of course not. That's how you get got. Hell yes. I'm not even a little stitious, but I hate basements. Something or someone is down there waiting until I turn away and then it will strike. Both my parents are non-religious, very pragmatic people, and I'm their creepy black sheep type daughter. For some reason having to do with a story from his teen years that my dad refuses to talk about. Weird because he is a very talkative person. I was never allowed to have a Ouija board. I've watched scary movies since I was little with my parents. They never cared about any of my darker interests. But that's where the line was. To this day I've never touched one and I've been out of the house for half a decade. Well, same experience. My dad has always been super chill, but the one thing he told me to never mess with was a Ouija board because of 2 experiences he had in college with a Ouija board and some friends that ducked him up for the rest of his life. So I walk around Manhattan a lot for work, and there is always scaffolding with ladders attached. Every time I walk under one, I cross my fingers. About 10 years ago my mom's roof was being redone. The whole family went to look at the work so far. The shortest way was to walk under the ladder. The longer way was to go off the deck and wall around. I yell at my family that it is bad luck to walk under the ladder and I head off down the back steps. Once on flat ground, I rolled my ankle and broke my foot. I sat in the backyard crying for a solid 10 minutes before my family wandered back around and helped me. The roofers had a pumping radio and yelling was futile since they were by the loud noise on the complete other side of the house. The basement when the lights are off. I don't believe in anything paranormal, spiritual, religious, etc. But sometimes the dark makes me feel so uneasy and on edge. Even if it's a room I've just been in with the lights on. Like a primal fear kind of thing. Which is super weird considering I'm a night owl. I am a nurse and saw my fair share of dead people, 2 as of yesterday, but I have a keen sense of this person is gonna die today. Like sometimes I dreamt of my patient dying and the day after I learned that he died at that exact time. I also had strange dreams, such as one time, the one that creeped me out the most. I dreamt that I forgot to buy a birthday present for the girlfriend of my boyfriend's BFF, a girl I met once and that I don't follow on any social media. When I told him about my dream, he laughed it off just to come back 1 hour later with an uneasy look on his face, and he showed me her FCB page. It was, indeed, her birthday. I had no way to know. It was awkward. These very specific dreams creep me out sometimes, and sometimes I feel in my guts that my patient will die, and I rarely get mistaken. Like nearly never. I want to believe that it is from experience, but I am indeed a young nurse. I get that sense too sometimes, although my sense is usually around silly things, pregnancies, or just random moments that are a little off-putting to see in advance. It must be hard to have those moments with patients, but I think it shows your compassion too. You're in tune. Legacy code. Why does the build fail when I delete that commented outline? I'm not down to drive on backcountry dirt roads at night, the kind with no street lights and very few homes. I don't believe in the paranormal, but if anything paranormal exists, it will be a cryptid. I grew up on one of those roads. Nothing out there that's worse than the regular old humans. Funny, I've always found it comforting. I guess that might have to do with the fact that I live out in the back roads on a 10 acres forest away from a lot of people. Sometimes I just go out and walk through the woods at night if I can't sleep. I don't know where these superstitions originated or how exactly they're supposed to work, because I live in the American South and we have a bunch of superstitions from both Europe and Africa. But most people around here paint the roofs over their porches a specific shade of blue to ward off bad spirits. I also turn my shoes in 2 different directions after I take them off by the door. This supposedly confuses hags against bad juju in general, so it won't find you. I do this fully recognizing how ridiculous it is. I remember going on vacation to St. Simon's Island when I was young, and the tour guide pointed out that people painted their porches a certain shade of blue. She said the color was called haint blue because it was supposed to ward off the haints, but also because if you were trying to describe it, you would say, well, it haint blue, and it haint green. Going outside between 2:30–3:30 am. I'm not superstitious, but anytime I have had an odd experience, it was usually in this time range. A few years ago, a friend and I were driving from Texas to Pennsylvania and had decided to drive straight through the night. It was around 2:30 at night when we were driving through rural Alabama, and there was a super heavy pea soup fog that was almost impossible to see through. We were both awake and saw a guy walking along the side of the highway trying to flag us down. No broken down car or anything in sight. We both looked at each other and agreed that under no condition were we stopping, slowing down, or getting out of the vehicle anytime within the next 2 hours. I can't even describe how creepy and foreboding it was to see this man come out of the mist in the middle of nowhere. I don't mess around in graveyards. I don't ever visit one unless I'm paying respects to family. It always strikes me as weird when people use them for stuff like photo shoots. It feels disrespectful for some reason, even though there's not really anyone around to disrespect. My 5-year-old son is obsessed with the Pioneer Graveyard in our town. We always walk through it and he has me read the names and dates to him. Most of the people buried there were under 7 years old. Generally not superstitious, but I grew up in Hawaii and there is a legend about the night marchers, spirits of ancient warriors that are constantly marching to war. They say if you hang around an ancient Hawaiian rock wall after dark, you will upset the night marchers. One time my brother and I and some friends went camping and we found remnants of an old rock wall. We kind of about the legend, but the remnants passed under a tree and we wanted to set up tent under the tree for extra protection from the rain. Anyway, we set up a tarp and a tent underneath pretty close to the wall, hang out, eat food, etc. and finally go to sleep. We wake up to water dripping through the tent, and when we step out, the tent had been moved away from the wall and out from under tree and tarp we had set up. The tent had been moved at least 20 feet. At first we were trying to be rational and thought it must be a joke that one of us stepped out and moved the tent when the rest were asleep. But we tried putting 3 of us in the tent and one guy couldn't move it, and it definitely would have woken up anyone in the tent. A lot of superstitions are founded in simple good sense. Never walk under a ladder. Not because it's bad luck, but because someone might drop something on your ducking head. Not necessarily creepy, and it's probably controversial to consider it superstition. But I mean, well, when I was still a Christian, one day at youth group we were playing soccer outside. A fully lit up ambulance passed by and everyone stopped playing immediately to pray for the well-being of a patient. I'm not religious anymore. I don't believe in anything supernatural or superstitious, but whenever I see a lit up ambulance pass by, or an air ambulance fly overhead, I still pray for those inside. Jinn. I mean, if there is such a thing as an ancient magic, it would be where humans came from. The Middle East is one of the oldest pockets of humanity. I put jinn in the same category as old world fairies and various other tricksters. They appear in just about every mythology, are extremely dangerous when underestimated, and there's no reason to duck around with something like that. I'll never go up against a Sicilian when death is on the line. Stories about skinwalkers freak me the duck out. I don't even want to talk about them, because even doing that can supposedly attract unwanted attention. My uncle lived on the Navajo reservation for a while as a young man as a missionary. He will tell you almost anything, except about skinwalkers. Pretty much just says that he has had experiences with them but doesn't want to talk about it. The fear in his eyes is enough to convince me not to duck with them. I won't ever play Ouija board even once in my life. Good move. You never know what could happen. Maybe you're trying to summon the brother of a legendary Italian plumber and Luigi pops out instead. Dangerous things. Ouija boards. I was able to postpone a final I wasn't prepared for in college by telling my professor that my aunt died. My aunt ended up actually dying the day after from a brain aneurysm, and her funeral was held on the same day as my makeup final. It's 13 years later and I still regret that and don't duck with that kind of shit anymore. I'm not religious, nor am I superstitious, but that ducked me up and it felt like I caused her death. Setting the volume to 44. I'm not superstitious, but 4 sounds like the word for death in my mother tongue. I always go to 43 or 45. I keep having uncontrollable thoughts of getting into a car accident if I set the volume to 44 in my car. I know it makes no sense, aside from potentially inducing a self-fulfilling prophecy, but still. This one is really interesting. Touching wood. Fairy rings or anything fae related. My cousin told me very firmly that all fairy stuff is all ridiculous, not real, and that the only reason he keeps a fairy ring on his property is because the government pays him to out of a heritage maintenance fund. He keeps injured cows in the ring because it helps them feel safe once he's separated them from the herd. He then goes on to tell me that his uncle, who lived down the street, bulldozed his fairy ring and then bam, cancer, and urged me never to mess with fairy rings. I visited the ring later on that day and left some whiskey for whatever may be there. My cousin signed the cross at me for protection. Once I got back, the bad gut feeling about things. I'm in an area and I don't feel okay, or I am around someone and I don't feel safe. No reasoning or logic behind it, but I trust it. I never put my left shoe on first. I read that it was unlucky in some weird library book back in high school and it stuck. I also have clinically diagnosed OCD, so maybe that has something to do with it. I go to school at Ohio State University. I live in a dorm on campus. I swear to God it's haunted. Didn't even believe in ghosts until I got to this dorm, and my bathroom door will randomly open without anybody touching it even though it is very firmly shut. It's even happened when it was locked once. My boyfriend has also seen it happen. And apparently, said ghost is impatient, because I often pull up videos on my laptop, which doesn't have autoplay turned on, and randomly the videos will start playing. I honestly don't even know whether to be scared or not. I will not wish death upon anyone anymore, no matter how much I despise them, because the 2 times that I have, someone close to me have died shortly afterwards. My uncle and a cousin. Maybe it was purely coincidental, maybe not, but I've looked at it as my karma for wishing harm upon someone. Ouija boards. I messed around with one when I was in high school. My friend and I supposedly made contact with a 15-year-old boy and we found ourselves wanting to play it all the time. It became so addicting. I don't remember how or why we gave it up, but I'm glad we did. I'm not really superstitious, but I believe those things are dangerous. Evil exists, lol. I will never put a hat on a bed, even for a second, or a couch for that matter. That's about the only superstition I've ever taken seriously, and I have no idea what it means, and only seen it in one other place, in a movie from the 80s, Drugstore Cowboy. But my dad told me once when I was a kid, kind of an offhand comment, but for some reason I've always taken it seriously and I even passed it on to my sons. My wife hates it, lol. Whoa, You made it to the end, you're a ducking beast. I'll cut you a deal. Smash like and subscribe for more curated content, bruh. It's free and that's a great price.